Hello and welcome. Coming up tonight, is Jeremy Corbyn reconciled to being outside of Labour forever? I'll ask the man himself. As rail unions and employers hold secret talks, I'll ask the Transport Secretary Mark Harper if a settlement is at last coming down the track. Anushka and Skrini have the numbers on whether Rishi Sunak has even the remotest chance of winning the next election. The UK's best political dramatist, James Graham, on how the strikes are shaping his next TV drama. And two MPs working overtime for us. Labour's Liz Kendall and the Tory Jake Berry.
And of course, that is combined with the inflation from the war in Ukraine.
Jeremy Corbyn sitting here. I've got to go to him. Very nice to see you, Jeremy.
Hi, Robert. How are you?
Really not too bad. You OK?
Great.
Very good. Now, we've been talking... Let's just stick to this issue of the strikes. Do you think that, you know, being expelled from the Parliamentary Labour Party, but do you think the Labour Party should commit... The nurses, for example, have moved from wanting a 19% pay rise to a 10% pay rise. Do you think that the Labour Party should commit, for example, to saying the nurses should get a 10% pay rise?
I think we should commit to restoring the pay levels that have been taken away by inflation and recognise that the damage that's been done to public services by low pay, which has gone on now for 12 years, and the loss of morale, which you referred to, is huge and serious, and that very many nurses are leaving the profession. You've got almost as many leaving as joining.
The nurses have calculated that their pay has fallen by 20%. Are you saying they should get a 20% pay rise?
I think they should get an inflation-level pay rise.
This year?
Yeah, and it's up to the negotiations how that is actually worked out with the unions. If it's done now, it's over a period, whatever.
But you think that they should be completely protected from inflation?
I think we should recognise that inflation has protected the very wealthiest who have done extremely well out of this. The levels of income at the top end are very high. The numbers of people that made a lot of money out of COVID are huge. It's the rest of the population that lost out. And
but Jeremy, you saw what happened to sterling. You saw the way that interest rates soared when Liz Truss made unfunded promises. We are borrowing colossal sums of money. There is a strong argument that if the government were to fund pay rises on that level, again, interest rates would rise and everybody would be poorer.
There is also a very strong argument that the levels of inflation are caused by the government's failure to control, for example, energy prices, which have gone up massively, and that has been the motive behind it. And so
they can't control. They couldn't control Putin's invasion of Russia, which has been the biggest driver.
That has been a factor, a very big factor for sure. But Britain imports rather less gas and oil from Russia than most other European countries, and we generate quite a lot of our own electricity as well. And so there are issues about the role of government. I mean, the French government, not left-wing government by any manner of means, have intervened in the energy market in order to take EDF completely into public ownership in order to protect electricity prices. The British government could have done the same.
Now, when it comes to the approach to the strikes, Keir Starmer has told his front bench they can't stand on picket lines. What do you think of that?
Well, you find out a lot on a picket line, because those are people that are making a sacrifice. They don't want to lose wages, but they go on strike because they feel they have no alternative. I was talking to ambulance workers this morning in my own borough about why they're on strike. And you know what? The whole time they were checking the radio to make sure if any emergency call came in a life and limb situation, they would go to it. They were telling me they were absolutely fed up with the loss of income, with the stress levels of the job, and the fact that when they went to pick somebody up, took them to the hospital, they were often waiting an hour or more outside the hospital. And so it's a cry from the heart from people who've dedicated their lives to our health service.
These are obviously profoundly upsetting stories, but I think you're saying Keir Starmer himself should join the picket line.
Go along and listen to what people have to say. You learn a lot from it. I've stood quite long discussions with postal workers about the stress levels they face. They feel undervalued. They're part of the community. They deliver our post, they deliver our packages, and they feel they're just being turned into a gig economy. And so these disputes, and the rail workers also, are not just about pay. They're about valuing and recognising the skill levels of people in all those areas who took us through COVID.
And as you say, valuing is about much more than money. Jeremy, don't go away. Much more from you and Liz and Jake. And I'll also be talking to the brilliant political playwright James Graham. So come back in a minute. Welcome back. I'll be talking with former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn again in a minute, but first, Anushka.
Thank you. I just want to show you a quick poll looking at how people feel about the Labour Party and how they felt. So, look, in 2017 and 2019, under Jeremy Corbyn's rule, a lot of people were quite negative about the Labour Party. 43% and then 49% said they'd be dismayed if Labour won. That has fallen to 34% under Keir Starmer. But the number of people excited about Labour has also fallen from 31% and 26% down to 22%. More are now in the wouldn't mind category. Although another thing helping Keir Starmer in the polls is a big increase in anti-Tory feeling. Robert.
Thanks, Anushka. So, look, just very briefly on that, I don't want to dwell on it. Do you accept the critique that many Labour MPs make is just that you personally were way too unpopular in the so-called red wall seats?
No, I think that I did have a problem with the media, for sure, but I also think that we were unpopular
but why do you think so many former Labour supporters turned against you then in the last election?
The numbers who actually voted and transferred from Labour to the Conservatives was quite small. There was a bigger Labour abstention in those seats, and so there's a bit of exaggeration on the red.
But it still
red
meant
wall stuff.
that your share fell.
Yeah, of course it fell. It was disastrous for us to lose those seats. I absolutely get that, and there were a number of factors. Yes, the attacks that had been made against me were probably a substantial factor, but not the only factor in that. The factors in that were also about perceptions of society, also about the loss of prestige and image in those towns, the loss of jobs and the deindustrialisation. The fall in Labour support in many of those that had hitherto been very strong Labour seats didn't all happen in one election. It had been happening over a very long period of time.
Now, Keir Starmer has made it very clear he's not going to get you back into the Parliamentary Labour Party. Are you now reconciled to standing as an independent at the next election?
I was elected as the Labour MP for Islington North in the last general election, as I have been in the previous 9 general elections, so 10 times I've been elected. I think the people of Islington North and the North Islington Labour Party members should be able to make that choice and that decision.
But they're not going to be allowed to make that decision.
Well,
Keir Starmer's made that decision. So I'm just asking, given that he's actually said he thinks it's highly unlikely you're going to be able to stand as a Labour candidate. Are you planning to run as an independent?
Hypothetical question.
Yep.
I'm a member of the Labour Party. I joined the Labour Party before England men's team won the World Cup. I've spent my life in the Labour Party. I've done every job there is in the Labour Party. And I think that the members of Islington North Labour Party deserve that. Keir Starmer also promised that he wouldn't interfere in selections, that he would energise the democracy of the Labour Party. If that's to be the case, this is a strange way of going about it.
OK, but, you know, the rules are also clear that you have to be a member of the Parliamentary Party to stand. You're not going to be allowed back. At what point will you therefore make the decision about whether you'll run as an independent?
How do you know I'm not going to be allowed back?
Because
have you got an inside track to the Whip's office?
Starmer has said it publicly.
He said words on this. Yes, I'm sure I know all that. I've heard all that. I just make the point.
Yeah.
I was elected as a Labour MP. I'm proud to represent that constituency as a Labour MP. I'm working with the local constituency party all the time, representing local cases and all the other issues that we do, and representing our movement all the time.
And as you say, though, you know, the evidence of many elections is there strong personal support for you in the constituency, which is why I'm asking you whether, in the case that you don't want to contemplate, that they won't let you back, will you run as an independent?
Hypothetical question. We'll deal with that when it happens.
Final question.
Really?
Right? You are...
There's never a final question with you.
Well,
we're supposed to call you Brother Peston now after your wonderful tweets against the bill today. Your explanation of it was superb.
It's very... I've just got one very quick question before I go to
Sure.
Liz on this. You stand up for free speech. Did Andrew Bridgen cross a line with his tweets about vaccinations and comparing the vax programme to the Holocaust?
Listen...
Was that a line crossed?
You cannot compare anything to the Holocaust. The Holocaust was the most evil event.
So throwing
of
him
the
out is the
20th
right
century.
thing for the Tories.
So
right.
I think the Tory party cannot... Nobody can contemplate the idea. You can just draw a parallel on these things. The Holocaust was the most evil thing that happened.
Liz, Jeremy thinks Keir Starmer's going to change his mind and welcome him back. Do you think that's going to happen?
No, and I'm afraid Jeremy only has himself to blame for the situation he's in because of his failure to apologise for what happened in the Labour Party when he was leader on anti-Semitism. You know, and we were speaking earlier about what happened at the last election. The truth is, it was a catastrophic defeat
for the
Labour Party.
What apology, I mean, because maybe you'll do it now, what apology would you want from Jeremy?
A full and frank apology, which has never happened. But let me just say this...
Do you accept that you haven't made a full and frank apology?
I have explained many times and apologised many times for the situation that happened in the party, but you will also know, Liz, that I appointed Shami Chakrabarti to undertake an investigation into this and produce a report, and I accepted the Equalities and Human Rights Commission report, and the Ford inquiry indicated that everything I'd said about the scale, evil as anti-Semitism is, the scale of it within the party was grossly exaggerated. We are a party of anti-racists, like you and I equally are.
And I am proud that Keir Starmer has taken firm action on this issue since he became leader of the Labour Party, and that he has changed the Labour Party since Jeremy Corbyn was leader, that he said that we love our country, that we're proud of our armed forces and we stand up for NATO. He has changed our party in saying we will root out anti-Semitism, and people who think that the problem was exaggerated are actually part of the problem themselves. There's been a big change in the Labour Party now, and I think that's where, you know, Jeremy had his chance, that didn't work. It's Keir Starmer who's going to lead us into the next election with a changed Labour Party, and that is really important.
But you must have... I mean, Jeremy, as he said, has devoted, you know, decades to the Labour Party. Does that earn him no loyalty from that?
I'm afraid, as I said, he only has himself to blame for once again repeating that the issue of anti-Semitism, he says, was exaggerated.
That makes him part of the
As you well know, I've never said that anti-Semitism as an evil was exaggerated. I've said the numbers of cases were exaggerated. You know pretty well what I said, and you know what the Ford inquiry...
I think we've been around this territory quite a lot of time.